Mr. Rich Fogarty. We finally made this happen, man. We've been trying to organise this for a while.
It's been a long time in the making, but mate, we're finally here, and appreciate you having me on there, bruv.
I believe everything happens when it's meant to happen. So today, this podcast right now, it's meant to happen. I'm looking forward to it.
Yeah, me too, mate. Me too.
What's been happening, man? You moved from Melbourne to Newcastle, BroFit. A lot's been happening in your life.
Yeah, it's been a bit of a crazy ride, but I sort of was in Melbourne for the last 3 years, and as I said off camera, it was more, and I felt like I was in a 3-year holiday down there, just sort of running the Brooklyn Fitness Centre with my brother Rob and Brooklyn Boxing Club, and just really playing golf sort of 3 or 4 days a week. But you get to a stage where you can play golf every day, but then you sort of think to yourself, is this really making me happy? Is it giving me any purpose? And as much as I love my brother and love the crew that I actually met down in Melbourne, because Melbourne's a beautiful city, but it was just, I don't know, something in my heart. Obviously, my children who I raised are back in Newcastle living. So I was just like, do I want to be down here and I'll follow playing golf 4 days? My kids are up in Newcastle. They're settling down with their children. Do I want to be that far away from them? What's life going to be if they're just by themselves? And so I was just like, I've got to bite the bullet. And obviously I made that choice. Probably a bit rushed, to be honest, to start with, but that's just how I work. I think once I get an idea in my head, I'm just like, boom, let's go and do it. And then I was presented with, BroFit Newcastle from one of my great friends, Tama and James Tahuna, who have got BroFit Penrith. So I just sort of put, the youth mentoring work that I do and BroFit together, and I was like, that's what I want to enjoy doing. Each day where I can bring a bit of a difference to people's lives, especially men, in the mental health battle and the physical battle, and then try and make do with playing golf, keep me golf going.
I take family as a high priority for you.
It is.
Going back though, because for me, I love to actually get to know my guests on a deeper level and get to know who they are as a person, because people may say, BroFit Newcastle or the boxing coach or everything that you've done, right, externally, but like, who is Rich Fogarty? And for you mentioning family as a high priority to you, where does that stem from? What was your family life like growing up?
Growing up was my mother, who passed obviously at a young age from melanoma, but my mother was the engine of what you call the Fogarty mobile. With mum, everything she done, she was such a strong woman, motivated woman, hard-working woman. And there was my mother who was at the helm of the boat, and then my father Ken and my brother Rob. So there was only 4 of us in the family, but what my mother went through as a young kid, obviously met my father when they were like 15 years of age, and the tribulations and everything that they went through, I don't know, just made her a very, very strong woman. And pretty much, obviously, us men were just pussies around mum. Whatever mum said, that's what went. So the family life was a great life in regards to loving. Like mum, my father, my brother, myself, we're very close. We're very, our passion is we love each other. Even when mum was passing away, she was like, whatever you do, just make sure you and Rob stick together and always love each other.
Is that why you followed him to Melbourne?
Yeah. Well, I followed, it was sort of when we were younger, I was always the one at the front talking, and my brother was holding my shirt at the back because he's the younger one. And then the older we got, obviously the bigger he got, he took control, and he sort of led the way. And thankfully he did, because I wouldn't probably have a life and a lifestyle that I have and that I've had without my brother, So family's very important to me.
I did some research, and you grew up like in a hotel or something like that?
Hotel life is what we grew up in. So
what was that like?
It was good. It was good in aspects of you never really had your parents there to tell you what to do or being strict, because they were all, and my parents are very hard workers in the hotels from morning to night. And when you're a publican, it's a lot of hours, a lot of hard work. And we lived that life for a lot of years in all different hotels. And, me and my brother would, we'd just have the run of the mill. We'd be able to just walk around the hotel, go and play, go to school, come home, run amok. Some mornings was our cleaner would obviously get up early and clean. We'd go past his room and throw pegs or oranges at him to wake him up. And some nights would be getting out on the roof of the hotel, probably shouldn't say this, but pegging oranges at cars, and then obviously there'd be a screeching of the car. And
One
then
of those kids, eh?
Mum and Dad probably knew what was going on. We'd race back in the window, jump in bed together and just make out that we'd been asleep all that time.
Well, at least they were oranges and stuff.
100%,
I remember
yeah.
when I was a kid, we were driving on the freeway, and how the overhead
Oh,
bridges.
yeah.
Someone
100%.
threw a rock straight
Yeah.
through the window and
That's-
shattered right on me. I was like, what?
Yeah, that sort of stuff, when you think back to what you used to get away with, what used to happen. Like if you threw an orange off a hotel sort of roof now and hit a car's windscreen or whatever, it would be like police would be called, everything else. But back in the day, it was just like, boom, a screeching noise. Who the hell threw that? Whatever, got in your car and left again. So times have definitely changed, and so's the generation too that we're in. So the generation that's coming through now is more can be the violent type, and amongst our youth is death is the end result for some of these violence, So times have definitely changed. But hotel life, man, it was a crazy life. I won't say it was a normal life, because violence to us, my brother and I, were probably normal. We normalise it because when you're in the front bar, and one of the hotels we lived at and owned in Newcastle was the Criterion. So it was a gay and lesbian bar back then in the 70s, and a bikie pub. So you can just imagine that culture altogether. There was fights, there was punch-ups, there was glassings, and some nights Mum would come upstairs after finishing breaking up a fight, just covered in blood. And me and my brother would be like, what the hell's going on? We thought it was her blood, and she'd be just breaking a fight up. So, yeah, it was crazy experiences. But again, it's just another experience I get to live, but get to talk about, in the future to other young generation.
Exactly. And what I find interesting is, just before you said like your family had a really strong connection and a bond, right? But during that period where you were living that hotel life, how did you feel like your family maintained that when your parents were always working, and then you and your brother were just running around everywhere?
Oh, just everything. Even though Mum was so hard working and would work some crazy hours, my brother and I were still always first priority to her. So whether it's getting off to school, would have someone walk us to school, or she would walk us to school, making lunches, or, coming home from school, would get walked home from school, and then obviously Mum would make sure we're upstairs getting bathed or getting looked after or whatever else. So we were always number one priority to Mum. My father, my brother and I were like, that was my mum's world. Like there was no other thing in Mum's world. So that's why she always made it, even though she was hard working and done a lot of different jobs and worked hard, but it was just like we were the priority of her life. So,
And you turned out pretty good, eh?
well, so far, I'm trying to do my best in regards to, obviously now she passed a few years ago now. So I don't know, just even the other day I was just looking at a photo through my phone and seeing her, and because sometimes when someone passes who you dearly love, even though you say, I'm never going to forget you, and I never do forget Mum. I always have her in the back of my mind, or if something happens to my daughter and I see my mother in my daughter, it's sort of, you get that sort of memory back. And then just looking through the photos the other day, and I was just like, wow, I just zoomed up into her face just to really remember how beautiful and what a beautiful mother she was. And that sort of gives you that little bit of comfort, even though it might be only for a minute, but it's just one of those things. You just sometimes you forget the smell, the touch, the feeling of your mother when they pass, and then a lot of years go by, and you look at a photo and you go, wow, that's, you zoom in and just see, how beautiful she was. Yeah, it's always there.
Brings back those memories. And for you, what are some of those lessons or pivotal moments that you learnt from your mum that have helped shaped the man that sits in front of us today? Like we mentioned, strength was a big part of her, which I'm assuming you've taken into your own life, but what else has kind of shaped you?
I think just her drive, if she wanted to do something, and this is the crazy part of our life, we could be living in a hotel in Kingaroy, and after 10 months of living there, mum decides she wants to go and she wants the ocean next to her. So let's sell this, let's get out of this pub and let's go to Caloundra. So boom, next minute we're selling the pub, we're getting out of the pub, and next minute we're living in Caloundra on Sunshine Coast. But it was just probably her gypsy ways, obviously. Free spirit, I probably would say that. But in saying that, her strength and really determination of life in regards to, even to her last dying day, even though she knew she was dying, she would still get to the stage of having the strength to write letters and cards to my children and my brother's children, put gifts in these bags for them. So when she did pass, we had to give them to the kids, so the kids will always remember her. Mm. So it was, yeah, that's a bit sort of a big thing for me, to know that you're dying and still be able to write letters of what you're going to write after you've gone to your grandchildren. It's a big thing for me. That's what I call is like strength. That's courage and strength to do that, because I think a lot of people get told they're going to die. The last thing they want to be doing is writing letters to say they're dying. But even like being offered treatment, Mum didn't want to do that. She's like, I want to die with dignity. I'm not going to die in a hospital. I'll die at home. Like just that sort of stuff, just always buzzed me. And I was like, that's strength. That's someone who is happy to move on and know that she's done enough in her life to raise her children and support her husband. So that's why my mother will always be, that person you go look to and you go, shit, man, that's strength,
Shows the type of woman she was. God bless her. So.
Oh man, it's just, it's a crazy thing for an individual to go through that, and what she went through in regards to the last few weeks of the melanoma is just to just see her so strong, and then to be depleted away by such a shit disease is just like, wow, and that took us, obviously, because Mum was the engine of the family, so it took the family to dark places, obviously, because once Mum left, all three of us boys were like, where do we go? What do we do? What's life for us now? So it was a big shock. But my children were probably that thing to go, okay, it's my grieving, I need to go and make sure I focus on my children so I can give them the best life that I can sort of lead with.
Yeah. Going through that time where your mum is sick and she's writing those letters and she's essentially putting everyone else before herself, how does that impact you?
I just really, even the other day, just looking at a photo, it was like, if I get to the stage, I've had, even though I'm 50 now, my life has been a pretty good life. Like I haven't, really had a terrible life in regards to how I've lived my lifestyle. Travelled the world coaching, been there for my children, raised my children from a certain age. So it really sort of, and even looking at the photo the other day, I was like, if really God gets to that stage of really calling my number now, like even though what my mum was strong enough to go, death has called me, I'm going. I'm like, you know what, even though the only sad part for me to leave this earth would be not to see my children grow. But everything outside of that, I've had an amazing life in a certain period. And that's why I'm just like, I'm not afraid. I'm not actually afraid of death itself. I'm just sad that if that happened to me, then I couldn't see my children grow or give my daughter away to a wedding. It gets me pretty emotional, but it really means so much to me that all that doesn't really worry me. But to leave my two children is the biggest part for me. So yeah, just what she was prepared to leave, that's pretty strong for me.
Mm-hmm. Those two kids of yours, Jet and Dakota, what do they mean to you?
Everything. I can't really talk about them too much on here because I'll just sit here crying all day long. But But yeah, that again, it's just that part where before getting full-time sort of custody of them and raising them in Newcastle was because I was just so busy with business. I was so passionate about running a business, being successful at business, and obviously, you know, they were raised well as well. But as soon as I got that opportunity to raise them myself in Newcastle, and it was just like the three of us, yeah, this just as a man, and if you've got a daughter, then you know there's no other love a man has. Well, I'll say a man really doesn't realise what love is until they have a daughter. All men go, oh, I want a boy, you know, carry on the spirit of the man and all this sort of stuff. And that's okay, because when you get a boy, they're such a beautiful creature. Then, you know, growing up with a man, you get, yeah, me boy, I love me boy, we go out and have a beer and that. But I've always said a man will realise what true love is when he has a daughter. And if you never had a daughter, then you'll know what love is with a son. But then that daughter you become the protector of that daughter. And if, you know, we're all young. So when you're a young man thinking back, oh, I know what I used to think of women and, you know, girlfriends, whatever. So now you've got a daughter, and that's why I've raised them the way I have. I've just told them the truth about everything. If they ask me a question, I'll tell them the raw truth. That's what the guy's probably thinking if he tells you he loves you in a week, all these sort of things. So I'm hoping that rawness and that strength and love that my mother gave me of being real to me is what I give to my two kids as well. You know, so that's been, you know, a blessing to me in regards to raising my two children.
I love that in you being real and being vulnerable to them, and also builds that trust within your relationship. So when stuff does go wrong, they can come to you because they know you're not going to judge them or get angry. Like, there's going to be times, but they know that, hey, Dad's always got my back. And as you were saying that just before, like, I got a two-year-old little girl, and as soon as you said, like, there's no other love, I'm like, unless you're a father to a little girl, it's so hard to explain.
Yeah, it's a different thing. It's a different kind of love. And if a father's had a daughter, then they understand what I mean. If they haven't, then they probably don't realise what they're missing out on if they haven't got a daughter as well. But, you know, if they've got a son, then having any children is a blessing to me. You know, I was lucky to have a boy and a girl, so that was a blessing to me in that stage as well.
And you said you got grandkids now too, or
no.
Soon?
But no, why I'll move back to Newcastle, because when they get to that stage of having grandkids,
so you're pushing them for it, or what?
No, I'm not pushing. I'm not pushing at all, because my daughter's, you know, she's very switched on and independent, and my son's the same, and you know, I just want them to live their true life and what they're happy to do. I've never forced my kids to do anything, even though I've come from combat sport. I've never pushed my son, oh mate, you've got to be a fighter, and because I know what the business is like, and it ain't a business that I want really my son, who's had a good life, to go into. Yeah. You know, if like some of us have had a different upbringing, then fighting was a way to, one, protect yourself, or find a way to find a positive lifestyle in that way of, you know, training, discipline, all the rest of it. So, but yeah, my kids they're independent and they just do their thing, and I'm just happy. But when it gets to that stage and they do go, you know, Dad, we're doing this, then I'll be happy for them, and I'll be happy to be there for the grandkids and be Poppy Rich. You know, that's got a good ring to me. You know, so
that's it. And you pretty much raised them like by yourself, you mentioned, right?
Yeah, since 2015.
Okay, how old were they then?
I think like
teens.
Yeah, I think 10 would have been 8 or 9.
Okay.
I think my son was like year 6. So if that was like 7 years old or 8 years old or something like that.
What was that? That would have been testing. Because
it was, but it was like at first because I'd done, when I separated, obviously I went to Newcastle. I went to Albuquerque first, because obviously after separation it was pretty traumatic. You're like, oh my God, you know, this is all happening. I leave my kids and all this sort of stuff. But I went to America for 3 months with a friend, Kyle Oak, who was staying at Cowboy Cerrone's ranch. So I went there for 2 or 3 months just to live on the ranch, and really the first time in my life that I didn't have a job, didn't have an address, didn't have, anything that I thought was security. And then my brother moved to Newcastle, and then I flew in from the US straight back to Newcastle. And then, so for 12 months, my children and former wife was over in Tamworth, where we eventually grew up. At the beginning, but I would make a thing every Friday afternoon. I would leave Newcastle, travel 3 hours to Tamworth. I had a good friend who was working in the mines back then, had a house, and blessed me by giving me a key to his house for 2 nights for that weekend. So for 12 months, without fail, I was in Tamworth from Friday, Saturday night, and then I'd drive back on Sunday. And those Sundays obviously were hard because you have 2 days with your children, and then you drive away from, back to Newcastle, 3 hours. And yeah, those days I remember, driving out of town with emotional and crying because I thought, man, I hope things get better with, having my kids nearby. But that 12 months built trust and love and loyalty even more for my children by doing that every single weekend. And they knew that, no other man was going to raise my children, and they knew I'd be there every single weekend. And I realistically just put my life to the side for 12 months because nothing else mattered to me at that stage. And I wanted to make sure that I was my children's superhero, that every time they looked at me, they could rely on me. So that was a big part of the 12 months leading. And then after that 12 months, obviously then they agreed they wanted to come and live with me in Newcastle. And from then on, that was probably when my life changed for the better. As much as it was scary, thinking I've got two kids, I haven't done parenting by myself. That was a bit scary, but I took it upon, just sort of raising them and taking them to school in the mornings, picking them up in the afternoons. And I usually say that was like the best probably 6, 7, 8 years of my life, just raising me 2 kids. I loved it. And I look back on it now, that time, and I'm like, not many men have that opportunity to get the children through whatever circumstances they go through, but they have that opportunity to have their children themselves and raise them, and not men probably want to do that either. But I was the opposite. I was just like, the love from my mother that drilled into me, I was just like, I'm not letting my children down. I can't let them down. So that was a big time for me, learning the fatherhood.
Yes, it's all fun and games, but Rich, man, honestly, I respect you as a man and as a father to be able to turn up for your 2 kids, because as you said, one, not many fathers get that opportunity, and if they do have that opportunity, they don't take it, which is why we have a lot of issues with the youth these days, because there's no strong male role models.
There's no role models. And sadly enough, the parents these days of separation, it's all about them and what they can get against each other. It's not hang on, little Johnny's here. What does he think?
That's it.
They're too busy trying to fight over this, trying to fight over that. And then 10 years goes by, and all that child will remember is what dad used to say to mum and what mum used to say to dad. So it's all right to hit women, or it's all right to hit a man. It's all right to throw things at them, and because that's how my mum and dad were, and that's not how we really realistically should be. If you do separate, yes, it's a lot of spite either way. Don't get me wrong; it's a hard time, but you've got to really think, right, what's my children going to be when they grow up looking at this? Do I want them to be a great role model or a great citizen and follow in my footsteps? Or I don't give a crap about them and I don't give a crap about her or him. I'm doing my own thing. And that's where social media, you see it all the time when people separate. It's always the photos of the best times of their life. I'm out on here on a yacht now. I'm separated. I'm single.
It's all bullshit.
Yeah.
All bullshit.
Yeah, and then obviously at night they're sitting in their room by themselves crying. So it's there's a lot of reality and there's a lot of fakeness that's happening. And the sad part is the children pay for a lot of it. That's the hard thing for me. But in saying that, the rewarding part is with the Ringside Youth Foundation, then we can bring these young men in to the gym, physical fitness, mental health, whatever it may be, and just try and guide them the best we can.
With the issue of, breakups and then ultimately affecting the kids, do we work with the kids or do we work with the adults? Where do you think we need to put our energy into?
I think you need to work with both.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of good things happening now. I've got a friend, Adam Carney, who has done his diplomas in all sorts of trauma stuff because he'd been through a lot of trauma, but through his childhood. But now, instead of focusing on the youth, he focuses on the parents. So he's doing a lot of work with the parents, and he's Elevate mentoring, which is an unbelievable thing. And then that filters down to the youth. Then the youth can come to me or a youth facility or services, and then, what they're seeing mum and dad working on is helping them to then come in and be at ease with trying to better themselves and then have more role models surrounding them in a good way. And, in the gyms, obviously like BroFit Penrith with James and Tama, two major community leaders in Penrith area. They've been here their whole life and they're respected by a lot of men, a lot of parents. I mean, Sunday mornings, they have 70 to 80 men come in there to do a training session. And they don't have to go there and have a cry and tell each other what their problems are, but they go in there, they know they're going to sweat it out. They have a guest speaker about mental health issues or mental health journeys, and then they train, and then they got breakfast. And, a good majority stay around and just chat. So that's one part of what society that Tama and James have created. And this is why now I have the opportunity to do that in BroFit Newcastle, to take that to the Newcastle community and to try and work with other people like Adam or Headspace or whoever to try and go, okay, well, let's work on both parents and children. Let's try and get back on track for where we think everything should be. That's, I think, where, there's, again, it's in this society, everyone's still out there wanting everything themselves. Oh, this is owed to me. What do I get out of it? There's a few of us left who are just going, this isn't about a money thing to us. Like, for BroFit Newcastle, my partner and I, we've spent close to nearly 100,000 just setting up a men's mental health gym. And Tama, I know, and James have spent the same. So it's not like, we're doing this to make millions of dollars. To us, we get our excitement and our enjoyment out of watching an older man, a younger man have a smile on their face, and them coming out in 5 years' time going, if it wasn't for BroFit Penrith or BroFit Newcastle, I wouldn't be the man I am today. And I've had that experience through Ringside Youth Foundation. Out of 1,000 kids or youth that I get, there may only be that 1 out of 20, 1 out of 50 that you get that you can actually change their life. And some of them, I look back now, I get tagged in social media, things that they say. But some of them, were going to, thinking of suicides, wanting to drop out of school, and then done some work just in the gym and had someone there for them all the time who cared for them. Then they went on to be managers of a hotel or doing their diploma at university. Now they're doing scholarships at this. And, it's just like, just that one little kind thing helped that person from a dismal ending and help them then domino effect to maybe his children or their children or grandchildren, who knows. But it's those little, and it really doesn't take that much to be kind and to care for someone's well-being.
Yeah.
And out of thousands of kids, I used to be where I used to spread myself so thin, and obviously that had a toll on the family as well. I'm not going to say I was a perfect father all the time, but it spreads you thin because you're trying to save everyone. But that's not the job. The job is to save the ones that want to be saved. The ones who don't want to be saved or can't be saved, someone else will cross their paths and help them in a different avenue to what you are. But the ones who go, I look up to Rich, I look up to Tama or James, they're the ones who will then give anything to be helped to be changed. And that's the job of Ringside Youth Foundation, BroFit Newcastle, BroFit Penrith. That's the job that we have, is anyone who wants to be helped has a safe space to be helped. It's not a hard remedy. Yes, it's a lot of money to make that space, but if you have passion to see people change their lives because you know what you went through, that's the reward. You know, you can have millions of dollars in the bank, the newest car and everything else, but happiness and my wealth, as I've gone through a lot of different things, my wealth is to see my children happy and content, other men who are battling with mental health, who just need a training partner, other friends who are actually real friends. And these days now you get to 50 years of age, you only have probably 5 or 6 true friends in your group. You have a lot of associates outside of your friends group and family group, but they're a part of the journey as well. Haters and lovers, they're still a part of the journey. You just got a real fine perspective, and that's what I've had to train myself in with what I've dealt with as a kid, is even though you think of bad thoughts or you go through a bad experience, instead of keep going down that line of negativity or bad, how do I get out of that? Then I turn things around and I go, well, when people go, oh, yeah, but I've got this happening, I've got that happening, I go, the 2 scenarios I use, I go, okay, remember years ago, there was a village in Kenya and rebels come in and took 300 young women out of that, slaughtered their husbands, or slaughtered the mothers and fathers, took their young girls and took them away for sex trafficking, sex slavery, murdered, rape, whatever. So you really let that hit home of what those girls would live for the rest of their life. And then you think of, okay, the worst case scenario, I could be in my hospital bed now, not seeing the rest of, this is 2024, I could never see another year again. I leave my family and friends, I leave everything. Now I'm sad because I'm just about to take my last breath in the hospital bed. You're looking at the ceiling. This is my last time. So when you're having a bad day and people are ringing you, annoying you, abusing you, whatever, I use those scenarios in the back of my head and go, is my day really that bad? Is it that bad that I go, wow, that's a real bad day? No, it's not that bad. That's how I've got to, every day with my mindset and my head noise, I've got to change my perspective on, as soon as I have those negative thoughts, I'll go down that track. I've got to go, what's a positive I can take to just get out of this remedy or this position I'm in right now? Okay, I've got to go down. I've got to think of those Kenya girls, as sad as it is. That's what brings me back down to earth and go, my day ain't that bad. Wake up to yourself, keep going, and get this shit done. That's how I look at. That's how I've got to maintain and program my brain to get through the next hour, 2 hours, day, 3 days, whatever it may be. But everyone's going through something, and they just have to try and I know it's hard because people, oh, you'll get over it, this, that. It's cliche to say that, but it's a way where you got to, as soon as you hit the negative or the black spots, what positive can I think of here? What's going to take me out of this straight away? Not, tomorrow, hopefully it's a better day. You got to work on the next minute, the next hour. It's not about what's happening tomorrow. It's about what's happening here. And that whole scenario throughout my life it's a daily noise. And that's why I think BroFit Newcastle will be a great thing for not just the men that come and train with me, but it'll be for me. Yeah. BroFit's for me. It's to help me through my head noise and keep me on track to go, that night out, I might go out with the boys, I might get really, get on it. But hang on a second, I've got to back up on Sunday with a guest speaker, or I've got to back up the next day on a Tuesday morning at 5 o'clock to say, come on boys, let's keep positive. It's very hard when you're contradicting yourself saying one thing and doing one thing and then having and doing the other.
Yeah.
So you got to get to that where it all is on the same lines, which that's the hardest battle.
It is. And for you, it would have been a journey, like you mentioned, traumas and, a lot of head noise that's going on in your head, stemming from, I'm assuming, that incident that happened when, how old were you when you were assaulted?
I think it was like, I think I would have been 5, 6, probably even older.
Okay. So you were sexually assaulted when you were 5 or 6, and that would have created a big trauma within your life and it affected you up until you said today. Like it's still kind of...
it's a daily thing, because there's not really a day that goes by when that thought, it may only be a second thought of what happened, but it's just the thought that goes, that happened, and what did I do in that instant when it did happen? And there's so many thoughts that always run through your head. What happened? Why did that happen? Or why did I, I grew up very confused after that, all those sort of things. I was like, is it girls that I like, or is it boys that I like? This is what's happening to me. What's normal? What's normal for me? And that was very confusing at that stage. But when I finally sort of got out of that situation, then it was like, then I had to deal with the bullying. So it was like, because I had red hair and freckles, I wasn't the most popular dude in school. So, and mind you, with everything that I was dealing with, I wasn't the most pleasant or polite dude either. I'd probably make trouble for myself. But then once you start getting bullied, and then you're every day turning up to school is a fearful day, because you're like, who's bashing me today? Where am I hiding? How do I get out of it? What bullshit can I talk to get out of it? And like some days, even before I started martial arts, I would say, even when I got bullied, they'd say, we're fighting out the front of the school. And I'll go, make sure you're there, knowing my mum's picking me up out the back. And I knew that. So, make sure you're there. Next minute I'll be like, I know mum's picking me up at the back. So as soon as that last buzzer goes, man, I'm out. And we used to drive past the front in the car. I used to be down in the window, and there used to be just people everywhere in this circle just waiting for me. And that was like, I was like, whew, I got out of that one. Every day it was like, how do I get out of this one? How do I get out of that one? And that's when I just come to the conclusion, after getting flogged a few times, I was like, I have to learn some sort of defense. And luckily for me, it was Kyokushin karate, a real knockdown style. And that really made me a man straight away, because that's where there's no pads, no shin pads, no nothing. It's one man against another one standing in front of him, each other, until one drops. And that's like Japanese. And you've got corks in legs, busted ribs, whatever, bruises all over your body. But that style, one, give me a fighting spirit, and give me a very strong mindset that helps me when I do go through those bad parts of the day, puts me into a stead where I go, that's the positive I've got to think of. So that's when the martial arts journey started. So yeah, it was a bit of a trip, a journey with all the childhood, but again, it's like a cliche thing. Everyone goes, oh, I wouldn't change a thing. And I probably wouldn't. I wouldn't probably like my children to go through what I went through. But if I didn't go through that, and I'm 50 now, what sort of life would I have had if I didn't go through that and didn't find martial arts or combat sport? And that's what a lot of people outside of combat sport don't realise, because they've never done it, or they've never had a trying time in childhood or whatever, where they've had to face bullying or abuse or whatever. So they've never gone to martial arts, so they don't know how martial arts can bring you out of the street and discipline you, make you into a real man or a real woman. And these days, even now, even though I do a lot of combat sport with boxing or MMA striking, I get parents go, oh, I want to get my young girl into boxing or some sort of martial arts. I say, take them to jiu-jitsu. Get them working and self-defense, where they don't have to use their punches or power against a man. Tell them to use jiu-jitsu. They can get them to the ground and choke them out. And then when they are very good at jiu-jitsu, then come and learn everything to do on the feet. Then that's for protection of a young woman or even a young man, that's the line I tell parents to go because of that. Through my martial arts, what I've seen, especially these top athletes, in Albuquerque, Jackson Winklejohns, the Michelle Watersons, the Holly Holmes, the John Joneses, the Diego Sanchez, all these crew who I've worked with and been in camps with, these are the ones you see, wow, this is, jiu-jitsu ain't no joke. And I believe that. I couldn't do it because my poor old limbs these days would probably get snapped in half. But I definitely respect jiu-jitsu, and I know what it serves to a person, not only just in defense work, but self-defense work, but also in discipline, in grading, in the journey of martial arts. And so I've been very privileged to be in that combat world for all my life since taking it up in 1991.
Yeah, wow. You mentioned the discipline, the self-defense. Do you believe like every kid should do some sort of martial arts?
I believe so, 100%. Because a lot of kids these days, obviously it's just the gaming. And the gaming, yes, they can go and do the gaming and be good at it, make money from it, whatever they got to do. But a lot of them don't make money from it. It's an addiction, whatever else. But by doing jiu-jitsu, by doing a martial arts, and I say always start with the martial arts, a karate, because that gives you a good foundation, good base for discipline. If you want to go to MMA, you want to go to karate, you want to go to kickboxing, boxing, then those skills that you've got in jiu-jitsu or a karate will carry on into the other combat world, and you'll be very good at everything rather than being just good at one thing, because this world we're living in, you've got to be good at everything to survive. So I always tell parents, if you can get them into a martial arts and they love it, then keep them there. It'll save a lot of trauma down the track.
Yeah. And I was going to ask, with the world that we live in now and the youth always on the screens, how do we get them off the screens and into the gym?
Well, yeah, a lot of it, one comes obviously getting them off the screens into something physical.
Yeah. And
that's why I believe what Tama and James have started, BroFit. It mightn't be like a worldwide franchise or anything like that, but it's two gyms that have started now, and for the purpose of getting the kids off the screens into the gym around other kids and training some sort of martial arts, some sort of fitness, but not only that, training their mental health as well. Getting advice from the older guys that they're training with, and we're very lucky with the BroFit Newcastle that we got Tama and James, because we've got the likes of Bam Bam Tuivasa who trains it there, and very good friends of both of ours, YP who used to be in 1-4 band. So all these guys who have had rough upbringings, what martial arts has done for them as training and being men, is they can then filter that down to the young youth now and make the young youth that we have trying to get off the screens, but make them better people to achieve different things, whether it's business, martial arts, or even gaming. They might be disciplined to go, I'm a great gamer, I get paid for it, but I know my limits. So it's just, I think it becomes more education as well. But it's a juggling act, because when you've got governments handing out money to schools for welfare, and now they're handing them out for well-being, some of the schools haven't got enough teachers to teach that. So that money that's raised or brought into schools goes to just supplying more teachers, which then wellness teachers, but then the wellness teachers have got to then just teach. They don't have the opportunity to then go, okay, we're going to put money towards going out doing life lessons. Schools these days should be learning about going to banks and learning how to save money, learning how to do share trading, to go and do a week's bricklaying, go and do a week's plumbing. Don't come to the schoolyard. You've got to sign in when you've done a week's plumbing. Next week you're going over to bricklaying. Next week you're going over to IT. Go and get the world experience and knowledge, because as everyone says, knowledge is power. But if you're only getting knowledge at school, and I don't say schools are bad, schools are good in respect of teachers trying to keep the kids on the right track. But there has to be another way where they go out into the world, even at a young age. At the young age now, these kids are learning more than what we ever knew at our age when we were that age. So they need to try and come out of the schools and go into the hard yakka of work, even being work experience as a prison officer. Because if you end up in prison, this is what you're going to go through.
Yeah.
Or if you do plumbing, you got to handle shit. You mightn't like it, but that's what you got to do. Mm-hmm. Roofer, plumber, electrician, IT, podcaster. And it doesn't matter. Every single week or do a month at each different job. So from year 7 through to year 10, all I've been doing is educate myself. So when I get to year 11 and 12, if I want to sit for the exams, this is the exams that are going to be on real life situations. Mm-hmm. You know, because my son, when I went to Melbourne, went to detention because he was in detention because he didn't do an assignment about jury duty. Like a person who never goes to jury duty, what is that thing going to ever achieve for him that's got no care factor about what he's talking about? But then he left school straight after that and went done plumbing for 2 years.
Yeah.
And learnt probably more in the 2 years than what he did in his whole school. Mm-hmm. But again, I'm not saying school's bad. I'm just saying they've just got to try and change and educate our young how to survive now, because the survival in this generation growing up haven't got life skills. There's a lot of 20-year-olds leaving school going, I'm a life coach, but they haven't done anything.
No.
And us old fellas just giggle at that because they go, your life coach at 20? Geez, wonder what life they've lived.
Yeah, their mum smacked them when they were 10, you know?
Yeah, and now they're depressed.
Yeah.
So they've had a life experience of being depressed. Now they're going to teach everyone else how not to be depressed.
Yeah.
I don't know. There's a lot of scenarios that get juggled up in our life, and our next generation coming through is a bit of a scary thought when you think about it. Mm. So we're not the biggest thing in regards to BroFit Newcastle, BroFit Penrith. Even the gyms that we had working in Melbourne with Brooklyn Fitness Centre and Brooklyn Boxing Club, it's about just being the ones who care to try and make a difference, you know, and that's all it comes down to, is just trying to make that difference in real life situations. That's what the education's all about. But as I say, like, I could go on for hours about it. Hence why I love mentoring the young men to try and be real men, you know.
I can feel your passion and your energy behind it, and I love that. And coming back to, I want to ask a question around, you know, that traumatic experience that you had, right? And a lot of kids, believe it or not, go through the same thing that you have gone through. How did you get to a point of, you know, being able to work through that and building the mindset that you have now? And what advice would you give to someone that's gone through a similar experience?
To be honest, again, for me personally, it was only finding a martial arts.
Yeah, okay.
To get through, to find a disciplined life, a healthy lifestyle. That's what really, I always say, that's what really saved my life, was the Kyokushin karate. That lifestyle really put me up to a level where I go, okay, not only do I have to deal with my head noise, but I know I'm strong enough to deal with it. And don't get me wrong, even when I've done martial arts and I went through and I was doing my business that I had on the Sunshine Coast and so forth, but even coming across anxiety, when I had anxiety attacks, I'd be just sitting at my dining room table and I just felt like a whole black cloud just come down over the top of me. And even at that stage back then, I had thoughts of, even at that stage, like hurting my children. I had that much of a bad experience with anxiety. My only remedy to get through that stage was to go outside in fresh air. I'd leave me dinner, because I was having dinner. I'd just leave it there on the table and I'd walk outside and just go for a walk for 20 or 30 minutes, just breathing and trying to get through what I was actually feeling. And that part helped me a lot in regards to how I knew when it was coming on. But then I go back to the discipline of martial arts, what it taught me in regards to having strong mindsets. like some of the battles I went through in Kyokushin, ring karate, kickboxing, whatever, and knowing how my body felt going through the pain of being, smashed up, and just having that strong mindset to go, I go through it. It was like I was addicted to the pain in the end, because I was like, when I have my body in pain means I've really gone into battle. So that was a thing that I would always toss around in my head. If I come out of a sparring or a fight, if I felt so much pain in my head or my body, that means I'd done the right thing. That's how I used to get through it. It's a bit bizarre, but that's how I used to have my mindset set, is if I'm feeling pain, I was addicted to the pain, then I knew I was happier knowing I'd try and achieve something.
Was it a point of like physically and mentally exhausting yourself so you didn't have to kind of think about it as well?
Well, the amount of floggings I probably got in the martial arts, because Kyokushin, as I said, no pads on the shins or no gloves, so you're allowed to punch the body, kick the head, kick the legs. So you'd come out of those sessions so busted up all the time, you didn't have really any energy to think about anything else.
Yeah, okay.
Your shins were smashed, your thighs were, buggered, your ribs were sore. But then you'd look at yourself in the mirror, all the bruises, and you're like, yeah, I got through that. Like, this is a strong mentality. And that was like the Kyokushin, that was like the karate style, was like the spirit, the fighting spirit. And that's why I always say to people now, Kyokushin give me that fighting spirit. So I go through a lot of different things each day, even now at 50, even when my body's sore. But I got to, now, because I know I've got a massive pain threshold, what is sort of a little bit sore to me would be so painful to someone else, because everyone's so different. But the pain, when I feel pain, is like a good thing. Except for I've got a bad headache or something like that, then I'll probably try and have some Nurofen to do that.
I'm curious, like, did you seek out this pain to kind of make yourself feel better about the pain that you experienced in that moment?
When you say when I took up martial arts and I did find the Kyokushin karate to start with, that I suppose that style suited me for my mindset, what I was probably going through. Mm-hmm. Because some of the crazy training we'd do would run up mountains with bare feet, and I'd have that much pain in my foot. I'd be elbowing the tree to put pain in my forearms, so I'd take away from my feet. And that was just all in my mind. So I was just like trying to get the pain from one area to another where I could cope with the arms, because I wasn't running on the arms. Yeah. I was running on the feet. So I think it was that mindset where I had to, I'm very good at switching my mindset. And if I feel pain or I start to feel something, then I put up the walls and I'll switch my mindset straight away into something where I can think positive or move on from.
And I'm curious, did you blame yourself for what happened and then kind of in a way physically torture yourself? Like, have you ever thought about that?
No, I would say I blame myself. I think I always have resentment towards the certain person.
Have you dealt with it? Have you done any therapy or anything?
I've done, yeah. I had to go to a certain stage, and no one at that time really knew that. And it was only a couple of sessions that I had to go and talk to somebody, which again really helped me at that stage, because as I say, when you're growing up and you're a young male and that happens to you, you get confused. And when I say, I'm very openly to say, I didn't know at that stage whether I liked men or women. I didn't know what was normal, because, I see mum and dad together, but then this was happening. Is that right or is that wrong? And I spent a lot of years confused, and I was like, what is normal? What is normal for me?
Yeah. I'm curious, did that affect your relationship with the mother of your children at all, do you feel? Or
I probably did, because there were certain things in my mind that I would think that's normal, and probably they didn't. But then relationship-wise, like an argument or something, like I'd never got in a yelling match. Mm-hmm. I've never called, a partner names, because obviously if you love someone, the last thing you want to do, for me, is see hurt in their eyes.
Yeah.
But I think that stemmed a lot from what I was probably dealing with, and I thought was normal. And it was more, I would do things where it was more like I felt like I didn't really have a soul, so to speak. I was just numb. So I'd do it for the sake of doing it.
Yeah.
And then I'd come back and I'd be like, no, that's not right. I've got a soul, I've got feelings and all that sort of stuff. So it was a full everyday battle.
It's like this torture chamber.
Yeah, and when I heard obviously a champion like Mike Tyson say it, you know, every day in my head is like a torture chamber. And it's just a matter of how I deal with each day is how it affects me in my mind. And that's the biggest thing when I say BroFit's needed in Newcastle. Richard needs BroFit. And that's why running a place like a men's only gym and that BroFit, that's where you've got to have the right person, the right passion, the right drive, and not someone who's just motivated by money to run BroFits. And the remedy that Tama and James already got, obviously me, I'm passionate about changing and helping men and young male lives, but they've given me an opportunity to have a bit of a purpose as well. So it's, I don't know, it's a, as I say, it's a torture chamber that just continues. And some days get me ass out of bed at 4 a.m. and I'll run, the beach at 4 a.m. when there's no one around, but I've got music in my ears, which then gives me time to think, okay, what through the day am I doing? What can I do better for the business? How am I going to explain this to the business or do this? And then I have a cold, obviously, swim like at 4:30 or 5 in the morning, and there's only 1 or 2 people around. So in my mindset, if I'm up before the sun, that means my day, I'm already well into my day. So when you see people just rocking up to the coffee shop at 8 o'clock, in my head, I've already done 4 hours of the day. I'm already in front 4 hours. That's how my mindset is that gets me through. Because as soon as 4 o'clock happens, that's like the old bells in the old torture chamber, dun, dun, and then I'm like, all right, no, just roll over, go back to sleep. But then you roll over and you see a light and you look at the light and you're like, no, don't get up and run, you're too tired. And then the battle start. Too tired, sleep in. Don't worry about going to do that. And it's like, fuck, get up and just go for a run. You know how you're going to feel after a run. You know how you're going to feel after a cold swim. And that seems to then kick the day where I feel like $1 million I can get through that day. So that's where the battle starts for me.
I call it your bitch voice.
Yeah.
Now, do you build a relationship with it or do you fight it every day?
Well, it's a tug of war because some days I'm going, yep, that's what I'm listening to. That's what I'm going to do. Boom, 4 o'clock, 4:30, I'm out of bed. Boom, I get the beach. Geez, it's cold. Let's just run. And other days, oh man, this doona is warm. I didn't get to bed till 11 or, this, that. All the excuses are starting. So it's like, either side's going hell for leather. And when I see those two heads on shoulders, that's no myth. That's a true story. Like, you got two voices just going at it, the good one and the bad one. So there's like the torture chamber. You got to go, just fight through it. You got to get through it and try and do the right thing or what you want, because the feeling when you finish a run or a swim, you're going to feel $1 million for the day. If you're going to get up at 7 o'clock and the sun's already up, you've lost 3 hours. So there's your already, I'm behind in the day already. I'm stressed. 4 o'clock, I've trained 2 hours, 3 hours. I'm sitting down, relaxing, having coffee. Now I'm getting into my day.
Yeah.
I'm ahead already by 3 hours. And that's the thing that just plays all the time. It's like those church bells, dung, dung, every day. And sometimes it's tiring, but some days it's a motivator.
Yeah.
But every day, and then, not only you're battling yourself, but then everything around, children, my partner, my brother, the business partner, whatever, then you've got to deal with all that. So that's why I need to, if I get up at 4 and run or go for a cold swim, the 4 hours that I've had by myself to think sets me up for the rest of the day to then deal with everything I've got to deal with and not really be too phased with anything.
Yeah.
And I'm very laid back when it comes to, one, I don't like confrontation. I'll just rather go whatever, just chill. I don't like arguing. I don't like, doing things wrong in regards to hurting people. So that 4 hours, sometimes you'd be amazed how amazing that first 4 hours while everyone else is asleep and you all got time to think, you got time to sweat. It triggers that fluid in your brain to get the day going. You'll be amazed when no one else is training but you, how much time and effort you've got for the rest of the day.
Yeah, it's a therapy within itself, and I think it's a necessity that it doesn't have to be waking up at 4, but at least having that time to yourself, whether that's 1 hour or
100%.
half an hour, just before you kickstart your day, having that time to do something for you to put you in a good mindset to attack your day.
100%. And that's when people go, this golf is my therapy, or, swimming is my therapy, or running is mine. Like, running is my therapy. Golf is my therapy. Obviously, I love and addicted to me golf. But, yeah, you just got to find those sort of things that you put as your therapy that bring you up to start the day in an amazing way and then carry on from there. I'm not saying it's easy, because it ain't.
No.
It's hard. It's hard.
Exactly. And I wanted to ask, so you mentioned, your mum was a free spirit, and earlier in the podcast you mentioned God. Are you a man of faith at all?
I was really, at one stage when I really was lost, I really put all my energy in Christianity and faith. And I still, don't get me wrong, I still love faith.
Yeah.
And I really, because it's always an argument point when you talk about when they say religion and all this sort of stuff. I don't really class it. I don't really like the word religion. I always say a person's faith. And to be honest, because there's so many things that people go to for strength, I believe that, to me, I believe there is a spirit of God in the world. How that's formed is anyone's argument, but what I draw from my faith, or what I draw from things I read, is what gives me strength. You might be Buddhism, and you might read something about Buddha that gives you strength. Hindu, Muslim, I think everyone has the right to draw strength from somewhere. I don't believe in all this, mate. This is the only religion. This is the only.
Yeah, they condemn each other
because the world's had so many journey people who have started something that people have followed and love and adore, and have drawn strength from. We still should be in that day and age now where, if I say I really love God, thank you Jesus for what you've done for me, or that person could go, I follow our Muslim leaders, or I follow the Buddhism. That's how that person survives this life in their way. That's how they get strength. You can't go, mate, Buddhism's not real, Muslim's not real, mate, mine's the only real one. No one knows. No one, deep down, everyone is drawing strength from what they believe in. And I've been, when I was right into Christianity, I loved the scripture, because the scriptures at that time meant something personal to me. When they read that scripture and then you sing that Christianity music, that's where I was drawing a lot of strength from that at that time. And I still draw, I hear that music, or I'll read a scripture on something. I've got them, as I say, tattooed on my arm. So sometimes I'll read something, I'll go, that still keeps me strong, and that still keeps me going with what I think it is today. And I'm just a big believer in, if someone has belief in something, let them and love them to have that, because that's their strength. It's not your doing to say that's not real, that you shouldn't be doing it, because so many, the Pope now is christening everyone, because he should be the Pope, the lover of everyone. Muslims the same, Buddhism the same. So I say the universe has a lot of strength to it, and if whatever your faith is and you get strength from it and gets you through the day and your family through the day and has love for you and your family, that's what you go with and that's where you draw strength from.
Beautifully said. Do you feel the youth these days are lacking that faith, that strength to draw from?
But that's again, it gets back to the stories that have happened in the past.
Yeah.
Like you've never heard of certain things that happen in a Buddhist temple, but you hear them happening that used to happen at a church. And when you think back in the day when these filthy animals who used to be leaders of church groups and used to take advantage of children and put God in front of their evil ways, then why would anyone follow that? Why would children growing up today, seeing what they see on the social media, why would they fall in love with a faith that they've heard nothing but bad things come from? It's because they'll cross paths with someone who will take them there, and then they'll find their own strength in that faith. But if you said, oh, why don't you just go and join a church? What's everyone's reaction to that these days? Because the damage was done previous to that because people didn't have the true love for what they were actually teaching. They were putting that person, God, in front of what they wanted people to think of them. You know, I've heard lots of stories where people go to church or go to a temple or go and show their faith and love for the community of that church, but come home and ruin their families by abuse or whatever. So, you know, it's a big thing. The generation come through even more confused than what we were. So it's a very hard thing to go, you know, I just can't see too much going towards building these things up at the moment unless you come across someone who takes you there and then you fall in love with it.
Yeah.
And again, it gets back to what I said, where you gain strength. If you gain strength, and Billy took me to the temple and man, it just hit me. And I love that. I want to learn more about it. Oh, it took me to a church. I heard the music and listened to scriptures. That hit me. I want to learn more. That's how it becomes that. But by verbally saying to someone, especially young today, go and join that place or go and join that place. Oh no, I've heard terrible things about that. 30 years ago it probably happened. And it wasn't the best to happen. But a lot of people don't forget. That's the hardest thing for now teaching us older ones. Don't go there, mate. This is what they do. You know, and I know some Christian pastors who are my close friends, and I know they strive to be better in regards to what they do in their faith. And it's hard because they've got all that stigma to grow with. And it's the worst part, but that's what happened. Yeah. They have to deal with it.
Yeah.
You know, it's another fine line, but that's why I don't mention the name. That's why I don't say religion, because as soon as you say religion, then you see everyone's hair stick up and because it's all about power. Religion's all about power and money. Mm-hmm. Where faith is what people actually draw. Like, to me, this is my only personal opinion, but faith to people is where they draw strength from. When you mention religion, then that's where people go, well, we want people to follow us. We're the religion, or whatever it may be. Who knows? But that's my personal, experience in that journey.
No, I appreciate you sharing that, because as I mentioned before, with the youth lacking faith, whether that's in a religion or pulling strength from somewhere, I feel like our youth are lacking that faith. And when they are hit with adversity, they feel like, especially young men, we feel like the world is on our shoulders. We have to do everything on ourselves. But if we had faith or something to pull strength from, we know, okay, God or whoever's in our corner, we can get through this.
100%.
Yet a lot of men are struggling, and unfortunately, we know the suicide rates are so high.
100%.
And I believe it's because we don't have that element of faith or somewhere to gain that strength from.
100%. And to be honest, like when you talk real, like if you're calling upon what you class as God or whatever, and people go, oh, that's only just an invisible man or whatever. If that person is surviving by drawing strength from that thing, person, whatever, That is their doing. That's how they're getting through this life. Who am I to say you're doing it the wrong way when I'm probably not even living the right way? So that's what life is at the moment is, and that's why getting back to BroFit with Newcastle and Penrith, I call, when Tamo said to me, this is the BroFit, instantly I thought, this is a movement. This is a movement where men can come and be in a place where they don't have to be judged. They can come and just sweat it out. They don't have to cry on each other's shoulders and, oh my God, guess what the wife did to me, or guess what the husband did to me, whatever. You can accept everyone because we're all here for one purpose. Sweat it out, train, get more knowledge, get more skills, network with other men who are going through the same thing, but uplift each other to be better people rather than just go, oh, well, he's successful now. What a piece of turd he is. He used to come and train with us, but now it's too good for us. No, he's successful. He used to train at BroFit, and because BroFit put that knowledge and that feeling of community with him, he's gone on to be successful. That's how we should be talking and uplifting, not going, oh, he's got 300 million, what a piece of turd, couldn't come back and give us some. Or, this is what BroFit's all about, is getting that community together of men that can come and go, not just talk about hard times, about having some great times, punching some pads, meeting other men, doing some circuit, sweating it out, getting not only their physical fitness, but their mental health better, which leads to a better husband, a better father, a better brother, a better whatever happens from that session. It may even be just 2 sessions that he does at a BroFit. Next minute, he feels that now his life has taken that first step. He can change a few things. Next minute, you've got wives going, whatever you do in BroFit is amazing because my husband is my husband again. He's there for the kids. He's there for me. He's there. So this isn't just appealing to men of Newcastle or the Penrith men. This is appealing to the women that think, I would love my husband to go there. Then go and get him a membership and make him come there. That's the community that when the BroFit starts, that's the movement that it's made. And not only that, the older men, 40, 50 and above, not only do they become better people in their own life, but all the people that surround their life. Now, because I've got Ringside youth coming into the gym, all the youth from 10 to 15 and younger, they get to be those role models to go, you know what? If you need some advice, I'll give you some advice. If you need a job, here's a pathway to do an apprenticeship. Little Johnny was at BroFit. He needs a job because he's a bit lost. I put him on the tools being a plumber. Mate, he's one of the best workers I've ever had. This is the stories that I'm trying to go with BroFit Newcastle. This is where it all leads from. And then Ringside Youth is that thing, that tool and that engine that, as I said, you may not save every single youth that you come across, but the ones who want to really work for it and want to change, that's where Ringside Youth Foundation steps in and goes, I've got all the avenues you want. Finances for food if your families are struggling. We can try and find you that through business sponsorship. If you can't pay for membership, you train for free. Just make sure you're here every single day. That's the contract. We've had those in the past, and the kids have grown up to be great men. If little Billy, mum and dad can't find any money but can't find an apprenticeship or can't find education, Ringside Youth Foundation, BroFit Newcastle can try and help through business sponsorship, paying for a diploma, paying for education of our kids. That's the whole point of what these movements are about. So that's why I've got so much passion about it, because I used to be that kid, and I know the contacts I have, and I'm very blessed to have contacts throughout the whole world these days, through whether it's martial arts, boxing, business, any sport that I've come across a lot of different faces. But that's what drives me and has passion, because I can pass that knowledge, even if it's a simple message from, it might be a message from a boxer. Tyson Fury, I'll know someone who knows him. Can you send this kid just a little video message to motivate him? Or the old guys, send a message from, Mike Tyson or someone like that to motivate these guys while they're training. Oh, Mike said BroFit Newcastle, wow. Just little things that I have access to. Then that's what I want to do with the BroFit Newcastle is that's how I want to motivate the men in Newcastle community to actually be great men of the community. So, and I know James and Tama have done that and are building something amazing here in Penrith. So I think that's the line that I'll be passionate about in Newcastle,
Yeah, essentially you're just creating good humans.
That's all it is, and it doesn't take much.
No.
It doesn't take much. It takes some good attitude and being kind in different situations. Everything else will, people, oh my God, I've got to make millions of dollars and then I can make a difference. Yeah, but what happens if you just make a difference and then you make money? Like it doesn't happen around the other way most of the time. People who come across millions, boom, like that, have worked on it for 20 years of what they're doing. But if you're making it, as the big cliche says, when you leave this earth, people won't care what you give them. But if you ask them how, about Rich Fogarty or about yourself, man, he made me feel like a winner. When I was in his gym or I was around that person, something drew me to him all the time. He's just passionate. He's got that. He's been through all that, but he can still have a smile on his face. That's what he made me feel. And when you leave this earth, that's what you want people to feel is something that you've made them feel, not what you've given them. And it's cliche because it goes around all the time on socials. It's not about what you give someone, it's about how you make them feel. And it's 100% correct.
And on that, when Rich Fogarty's time's all up and done on this earth, how do you want to be remembered? How do you want people to speak about you and how you made them feel?
All I really care about, because obviously I don't care about people's opinion of me, is for my two children to go, my father was an amazing man. Because then hopefully outside of that, other people will say, your father was an amazing man. Not only a man, but a father. And I can go to sleep for the rest of my time knowing I've done that job while I was here on the earth.
Rich, this has been an amazing conversation. We have a closing tradition where the previous guest leaves a question for the next guest. So the question for you is, what does wealth and success mean to you?
Wealth and success mean to me, probably wasted that question just before, is how I've made people feel. That's what wealth and success means to me. Nothing that's in the bank or anything that can be just once I'm gone, it's gone. But everyone has a spirit in them, and it's how I've made them feel, whether that's their first time meeting me, whether they've known me for 20 years. Just that feeling when someone says, what Rich Fogarty, they go, Rich Fogarty, mate, great dude, made me feel like a champion, whatever. That's my wealth and success in anything I do.
The big question, when does BroFit Newcastle open?
BroFit Newcastle is opening July, and I'm pushing for the second week in July. It's pretty much on track, and once the doors open in July, then it'll be mid-August, and I'll hold like a big grand opening because I've got a lot of friends from Penrith BroFit who are going to come up and celebrate as well. So July is when I want to get everything cracking because, again, when I haven't got routine, then it's bad days. So I need routine in my life because I'm so organised and such a routine person. So when it is open, then I know what class times I have, what private coaching I have, what community work I've got to go and do. Everything will be set out, and then what day I've got golf. That'll be the day I can put in the pencil in the day because I haven't played for 3 weeks, so it's killing me.
Awesome. Well, I look forward to that. I'll put all the links and everything in the bio. But, man, thank you so much for this conversation. We dove into a couple of different directions.
All different things.
It was awesome. So thank you so much for your time.
Bro. I appreciate your for having me on. And, yeah, such a great thing you're doing with your podcast, with your conversations. I have a bit of a look at who you got on. So some amazing guests, and no, you're doing some great work, bruv. Just keep it up.
Thank you, man.